It's the Small Business Rally Point for Monday, April 20th, 2020. I'm Pat Miller. I'm the Idea Coach. Thank you for tuning in today. And today's a special, supersized, extra large, awesome edition of the show, because not only is it another work week, it's a big show with some great topics. We're going to talk about the ABCs of negotiating with Jennifer Buchholz, who's also the executive producer of the show. She is so good at that. She teaches it on the college level. So we'll learn how to maybe ask for forgiveness for a mortgage or a lease that you're owned, or how to collect from a client that's maybe waffling, or how to protect your boundaries when it comes to those sorts of issues. It's something that all of us could be better at. Jennifer's a pro, and we'll have her on here in just a second. We will also talk with Eric Ness. He's the Wisconsin District Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration. So many questions for him about the PPP program, the EIDL program, and also other programs they're spinning up to help small business owners. We'll have him on the show in just a minute. Thank you to our partners, the Brookfield Chamber of Commerce, Third Eye Local, Serendipity Labs, and Brand Crafted, our rock of the network inside your network. If you want to make sure that you don't miss a single episode of the show, it's so easy. Just text us the word biz to 414-240-1315, and that way the Idea Coach robot will reach out to you on Mondays and say, hey, we're doing a thing, you should tune in. Also, welcome to our friends who are tuned in on Facebook. So today we'll do conflict. We'll talk about positivity as well. So we'll end on a good note. So think about good things that you're seeing that are happening in your network, or good things that are happening for you, because we want to make sure that we spread some positivity as we're done. But without further delay, we want to bring on the Wisconsin District Director for the U.S. Small Business Administration. Eric Ness is joining us. Eric, are you there? Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking a minute to talk to us today. I imagine that your world is upside down at the moment. Were things just going along nice and smooth, and then all of this thing happened and here comes a ton of volume? Or what has it been like as an administrator and a leader for the SBA in the last couple of weeks?
Well, it's been very, very busy, and there's a lot of small businesses that need a lot of help. We rolled out the EIDL program, which is called our Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Did a lot of training programs out on that, so people kind of understood how that program rolled out. The weekend before we rolled it out, though, we were working with the state to make sure that we could roll it out in Wisconsin, and work with the governor's office to be able to allow Wisconsin small business to access it. So that was our first program, and then, of course, on April 3rd, the PPP program rolled out. And then on April 10th, sole proprietors and independent contractors could come in and apply for the loans. And on April 16th, we ran out of money and had to take the program down temporarily. Interesting enough that before we, on April 16th, when we ended the program, we actually had 43,395 Wisconsin small businesses who did receive a loan for about $8.3 billion. And typically, a typical year, we're running between maybe 550 to 900,000 a year for an entire year. And actually, in those 2 weeks, we did 8.3 billion. So yes, it was quite busy.
Going from, if I heard you right, 900,000 to over 8 billion in the matter of weeks. How did the system possibly handle that?
Well, actually, we did about 550 million to about 900 million a year. That's kind of what our average was.
Got it.
And yes, we went to 8.3 billion in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So what we did is we relied on our lenders. So naturally, we met with Wisconsin Bankers Association. We also worked with our Credit Union League to try to get these programs out to small businesses, because we needed to get the money out quickly, and that did work, and that we did get it out very, very quickly.
Well, thanks for the information on that. Can you give us an update on what the latest is for the EIDL and the PPP? Is there any new information on either program that we need to be aware of?
So the new information is both the EIDL and the PPP are at this point closed for new applications. I know that there's requests for both funds to get more money out there. I just got emails this morning from small businesses who had put in for the EIDL loan program and they are getting their loan funds, or at least getting their closing documents so they can start getting their funds. So the good news is we are seeing people get financing through EIDL. And of course, naturally, from a national perspective, I think all of us are watching the news to see about the new funding for the PPP program, which we think is coming this week. One thing we should probably think about a little bit is when we started this program on April 3rd, we had to do training with lenders, get lenders ready to get into the program. All of it hit, and we still got out the 8.3 billion or the 43,000 or over 43,000 loan applications. When this does happen, or when Congress and the President sign off on this, we're expecting this to go probably even quicker. So what we're kind of advising small businesses to do is take a look on SBA.gov. You can see the loan application, and it's really connected to your payroll and what you can utilize it for is, of course, rent payments, mortgage interest payments, and utilities. Also, for things that were in place before February 15th, but really it's about payroll and what we're kind of recommending is for small businesses to take a look at that. There's a lot of different documents on our webpage that will actually kind of take you through some of the calculations. So be ready when it does open up again, and also you may want to make sure that your lender, that you're set up to work with your local lender. They're ready, that they're going to be doing the application. I know we ran into a little bit of problem on that, and so we're kind of just recommending folks to be prepared, because when it does happen, the money will probably go pretty quickly.
Yeah, with this lull right now, there's really no excuse to not be ready if and when the funding comes back. We're talking with Eric Ness, the Wisconsin District Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration. So setting those two programs to the side for a minute, what are some of the other ways that we could get funding if we were looking forward to it that are maybe always available from the SBA?
So always available is our microloans. We have our microloan lenders across the state that do loans typically under $50,000. I think the average is around maybe $18,000 to $20,000, and basically the max term on that is 6 years. We have a number of micro lenders around the state where you can access that program. And if you do a loan before September 27th and get it closed, SBA is actually making your payments for the next 6 months. And if you do have an SBA microloan right now, we are making your payments for 6 months. That's also true for our 7A loans and our 504 loans. The 7A loans typically go up to $5 million, can be used for working capital, can be used for equipment, can be used in refinancing or building, buying buildings and real estate. And that program also, if you do have a SBA loan presently, we are making those loan payments for the next 6 months. And if you get your new loan through the 7A program, we are making your loan payments for the 6 months after. But that loan, the loan would need to be approved and closed before the end September 27th. And also, it's the same for our 504 program, which is basically a fixed asset program to build for buildings, real estate, and we typically 50% comes from the local lender, 40% comes from the SBA. We sell that on the secondary market at a fixed rate, and then 10% comes from the local business. That 40% is the portion that we are that if you have a loan like that on your books now, we're going to make your payments for the next 6 months. And if you get one, if you finance and get a loan approved and closed before September 27th, we're also paying those payments for the next 6 months. And one thing I didn't miss is on both the 7A and 504s, we are also paying the fees. So just make sure your loan is closed before September 27th.
Very good. Very good. We have an audience of small business owners, and they may have a few questions. So if you have a question, drop it inside the chat, and we'll get you on with Eric Ness, the Wisconsin District Director for the U.S. Small Business Administration. A few more quick questions for you, Eric. You provide a newsletter that has information regularly distributed in it, but now you're kind of beefing up your programming a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about the webinars that are happening later this week?
Yes, and we're working with our small business development centers to, number one, update you on what's going on with our programs, and hopefully we'll be able to announce soon that we have more money in the PPP program, but also working with our small business development centers. We're kind of working with businesses to get your business going again, basically looking at cash flow, how is this all going to work to get your business up and operating again. So they're coming up on Wednesday and Thursday, I believe, of this week, and we always like that you connect with us to get you updated resources, because we've all seen in the last few weeks, things change pretty readily.
Great. One question that's come up from the chat, and I've heard this from a lot of folks that we've talked to. A lot of folks have applied for the EIDL, but we haven't seen a lot of folks actually receive their funding. Can you comment a little bit on how that pipeline is going and when some of these requests might actually be funded with cash in the bank? Or are we being premature and expecting them to show up this fast? Or do you have any insight on that?
Well, like I said, one of the applicants that got in on that first day, they emailed me today that they did get funding for both the grant side and the loan side. However, they haven't got the funds. They got more of the closing documents to get the process rolling where they can get the funds. But at least they knew that they were approved. So yes, they are moving forward. I know that there's a request for more funds for the EIDL program too, as they're going through, so to make sure that we can fund the loans that are out there. But at the present time, because of the funding challenges, you cannot apply for an EIDL loan presently. But all I can say is I have seen businesses get approved and are getting that farther down the process. So.
Got it. Got it. That's helpful. One more question that might be too far in the weeds, and if you don't have this information readily available, I totally understand. But one of the questions in the chat is asking about not necessarily the formula, but how do you determine the amount of money that is approved in an EIDL loan? Are there best practices or any work parts that go into that decision? And again, I understand if you might not know that off the top of your head, but I've heard some folks that have applied for more than didn't receive the entire amount. So can you shed some light on how that number is determined?
They were looking at working capital needs for the next 8 to 10 or 10 weeks. And so I think that it was really kind of targeted at what your working capital needs were on a weekly basis. One of the questions that we're getting to is if you had an EIDL and say it was state payroll, and then you got a PPP loan program too, then we're going to use the PPP program to pay down the EIDL funds, because we have to watch for the double dipping. So basically, payroll, if you have that and you went through PPP, would probably come through your PPP program.
Got it. Got it. Is there anything else? We have an audience full of small business owners here. Is there anything that you wish the small business community knew as a whole, or if you could just scream from the mountaintop and everyone would hear directly from you? Is there anything that you think as a group we don't quite understand, or you wish that you could share with all of us?
Well, one of the things too is utilize our small business development centers, utilize our veteran business outreach centers, and utilize SCORE and our Women's Business Center here in Brookfield with the Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation. They have great resources available. Just sometimes getting some advice and going through one of these loan programs is great. I know the SPDC, we did a lot of joint EIDL training with them, and they're going to get more funding to be able to kind of work with you and help you through this process.
The webinar that Eric was mentioning is called Keys to Business Survival, Cash Flow, and SBA Relief Options. It's coming up on Wednesday and Thursday, and I'll drop a link to that webinar in the chat here in just a minute. And Eric, I know that you're working around the clock as well as your team. A thank you to your team member, Rachel, for coordinating the interview today. Thank you for that. And as I say, I know you're busy, and to take a minute for us, we greatly appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Eric Ness, who is the Wisconsin District Director for the U.S. Small Business Administration. It's great to have him on the show, and hopefully you got a couple of your questions answered, and we got some information out there that we wanted to get on. So we're going to take a breath, and we're going to change gears here a little bit. We're going to move over now and talk about some of the uncomfortable conversations that you might have to have right now, because you may have a mortgage that you want to put on furlough for a month or two, or maybe you need to ask one of your vendors if you could just, I don't know, maybe not pay them right away, or you've got a client that's calling you up saying, I don't feel like paying, or I can't pay. At what point are you being greedy if you hold them to the fire? And at what point are you not guarding your boundaries if you give in? So we thought we'd find some expertise on this, and little did we know, we had expertise right in the house. The executive producer of the show, Jennifer Buchholz, she is, of course, the one of Excel and Flourish, but in her spare time, just whenever I get around to it, I'm a senior lecturer of online and continuing education at UW Oshkosh. Jennifer, we knew you were brilliant and talented, but brilliant and talented and ready to teach us the ABCs of negotiation. So thanks for doing that. What do the ABCs stand for? Do you have an acronym for that?
I do. Actually, once we started talking about this, it was really easy to come up with the ABCs, and then I started going further down the alphabet. So we'll keep it simple. The beginning is ask, the next is boundaries, and the C is create.
Okay, so let's start with ask. So let's say I need to negotiate something. I'm the asker. Like, I need something to happen. Walk us through negotiating that mindset of what you need to be thinking about as the asker.
So the first thing is, if you just start talking about how you feel, like, oh man, this is tough. Oh, things feel really tight. Oh, I'm not sure how we're going to get through. That is not an ask, my friends. It's just not. It's just your feelings. And an ask as an asker is, you might have something really specific in mind, or you can leave it open and see what could be created, but just say, I'm wondering if there's a way that you could work with me on my upcoming rent for the next couple of months, right? Okay. That is a clear ask. Now, you could get even more specific, like, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to waive rent for next month. That's even more specific of an ask. But without an ask, you're just kind of venting. And I would hope, as the askee, when somebody is just venting, that you're not making an offer prematurely.
So let's talk about that. So someone asks you for forgiveness or asks you for a deal. Until they give you something to decide on, are you just supposed to nod and smile? Or talk to us about that if someone's asking you during a negotiation in this type of situation.
Well, without there being an ask, it's actually not a negotiation. It's just a conversation, and that's okay. But like, up until there's actually a specific ask of you, it's great to provide empathy. It's great to give them some examples and be creative about what they might do. They may just need that space to create the conversation, and they may not be asking for you to solve it. So if you jump in prematurely, you might be cutting out your own revenue. You might be reducing rates that you have not been asked to do. They may have just been having a conversation. So until there's a specific ask, you are not expected to provide a solution.
And negotiations revolve around boundaries, right? Knowing where you can give and where you can't. Can you talk about that?
I can. So keep in mind that, we're all operating fiscally, whether it's our home budget and we're negotiating things at home, or whether it's our business budget or whatever that is. And we know what our uppers and lowers are. I actually liken the whole boundary thing to when you're negotiating for a car, to purchase a car, right? You know what they're asking, unless you go to the no haggle places. You know what they're asking, you know what you're willing to buy or willing to pay, and you're looking for some sort of what's in between. And the other part is, in boundaries, the minute that you give in too far, you feel it and you resent it.
Okay. So I need something to happen. I make the ask, you're being asked, and sometimes where you end up settling isn't exactly what they say. Is that right?
You're right. But that's like where that C comes in, where there's the opportunity to create a different possible solution. So again, just going back to that car situation for a second, what do? They throw in other extras. So right now, I actually am a landlord. I have a duplex and I have roommates, and I'm working to figure out how I can defer my my mortgage payments so that I can give them a break that they have not asked for yet, but I want to be prepared. In the meantime, I'm creating a different opportunity. I'm the one going out and buying the groceries. And when I can, I'm buying food for the house, like just to say, hey, you guys, I understand that everybody's in a tough time. This is what I can do right now. And so I created something that, in another example, perhaps if it's, again, a mortgage or landlord situation, it's not that you can waive their mortgage, but perhaps you can really negotiate on a utility type of thing. Oh, I can throw this in, or I can get a gift card for groceries. Like, it's not always philosophically we're like, ooh, they waived the rent, and that feels really good. But if you gave them something that was worth part of the value of that might be helpful as well. And for those of us who are all about trying to support local businesses, perhaps we're giving them a gift certificate to go get their dinner out at a local business. And that can create a different win-win. It's saving them some money. It's a little bit of a treat. It's supporting a local business. It's creating a solution that still has a lot of the feelings with it.
We talked about the ABCs, asking, boundaries, creativity, but dignity and style points mean something. So D is for dignity. We are on Sesame Street, by the way. D is for dignity. Talk to us about dignity as it matters inside a negotiation.
So part of this is that this is meant to be like a we thing, like we're in this together, because when your tenant has a problem, that could soon become your problem. So instead of us against them, we want to figure this out, and helping them preserve their dignity in that often entails a real conversation, not stuff just back and forth through email. Mm-hmm. So dignity is, even if you get the request through email, the response can be, sounds like this is a challenge for you right now. Why don't we schedule some time to talk about it? And so that way you get deeper into how you can create other solutions. And you're like, oh no, you're a human and I care about you. And that goes to all of our people, the people that we're buying from, the people that we sell to, all of it. We care about them.
So E is for empathy. So we're going deeper into the emotional side here now. So E is for empathy. Talk about that.
Well, I think like the first part of this, the ABCs is all about the facts, and the rest of the letters are about the feelings. And so empathy, don't assume to know somebody's situation and their situation is not your situation. So, and you don't need to know their whole situation to appreciate, back to dignity as well. They wouldn't be coming to you unless they had to. Mm-hmm. Nobody likes to come and say, oh yeah, can I get a handout or help? Or people don't like to do that. Now, there are some who like to take advantage because this is a crummy time or whatever that is, but I consider those to be few and far between. So instead, just give them the space and the grace to do it. The compassion and empathy will go a long way. I really think too, if somebody's thinking about leaving you, they're going to stop doing business with you, let them exit with grace. Give them a graceful way to step away, pause, or whatever that is, so that they can come back. Because I think, just like if you think about the travel industry right now, and those who weren't giving refunds up front, those are the ones that had the fastest backlash. And those are the ones that are not going to get rebooked. They're going to go elsewhere because they choose to shop with their dollars.
Yeah. F is for Andy Wines. It's for fairness, Andy. F is for fairness. Talk about fairness for a sec.
Right now, it's the time to separate the person from the emotion. So don't focus so much on whether you like the person or not. Just work on doing what you feel is right. And I can keep it brief because I know we want to get to some scenarios too.
Yeah, let's do that. This idea, we got to give credit to Rhonda Nordyke. She came up with the idea to talk about this because she's living this right now. Rhonda, I'm unmuting you. trying to at least. Can you talk about the scenario you ran into and how this idea came to mind? Because it's brilliant. Well, she is unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
No, you sound great.
Hold on one second. Sorry about that. That's
okay.
Maybe that thing is tired for the day.
Could be.
Okay. Well, Pat, thank you so much for the opportunity to share. And Jennifer, I love this conversation because I know that I'm experiencing it now a little bit, and I can't be the only one who is experiencing or going to experience it. The long and short of it is, I had a client who hired me back in the summer, who's going through divorce. So I work with women that are in that spot. And yeah, she is just, after all of these months, and it's not that I haven't provided value for her, but I think she's revisiting, like, okay, where am I at? And she came back to me and said, hey, if there is a balance on my account for the work that I've done with you, could you transfer it over to the attorney that I'm working with, because the court is now ordering her to go to mediation. And I was like, well, first of all, I don't know that I can do that. And secondly, there isn't a balance. And so I had an opportunity, though, to hop on a call with her. And being somebody who's the person who's asking, like, has somebody that's asking you, at first you're like, really, they're asking? And then at the same time, I'm grateful that they're asking, because it tees up a conversation. And I know somebody in the comments said it doesn't have to be a yes or no, and I agree. So I hopped on the phone and I said, tell me what's going on. And she's just in a really, really tough spot. Her husband had tried to commit suicide. She is in the real estate market. She's trying to get her footing. Now she's got to go to mediation, additional expenses. Anyways, long story short, we had a great conversation. I have had a pulse on what's going on with her situation. And I said, how about this? First of all, my rebuttal to her asking for any, if there was a transfer of funds available, I said, okay, there isn't, but I'm not going anywhere. So you've already paid me. Until this thing is over, I'm here. Utilize me. Let me know how I can continue to support you. I've reached out. I haven't heard back. What value can I bring to the table? In addition to that, she's going to mediation. Normally I charge extra for that on an hourly basis. And I just really felt like in the moment, that I wanted to do it for her at no additional cost. I said, if you want me to come, I will show up. And so the attorney approved it. I'm going to show up at mediation, provide additional support for her. And that felt really, really good to me. And I had already given her a discount on my regular coaching packages because of her situation that I don't normally do. But we left the call and she was really grateful. And, I think I built an ambassador and a fan at an even deeper level, and she was very touched by the fact that I was willing to do additional work at no cost.
That's great. That's great. And a great idea to have this conversation. So thanks for sharing that. Jennifer, how did she do? Sounds good?
Well, I love it because it wasn't about the money. It was about the value proposition. And here's the thing that Rhonda did really well, because first of all, we can all have those internal conversations of like, that's bullshit. I did all this, and you can tick off the list. And it doesn't matter how right you are, because you can be super, super right about everything that you did. Michael's comment about that's a compliment in the client coming back because she clearly feels like she has a relationship, and that's a really vulnerable ask for her to have. So there's all sorts of good that comes out of this. You reached out and had a conversation, huge win there. But then you're like, but how else can I help you? And you went above and beyond. So like, how can you not turn that situation? And it was not a huge amount of money. It was just this idea of, oh crap, I'm trying to gather all my stuff from all these different places. Where can I go pick from maybe this spot? And instead, with you being there at mediation, you might actually help her get more money than this initial payment would ever be. So it's so much bigger than that transaction.
Let's talk for a second, Jennifer, about let's say you had to call your landlord. You're leasing an office space, and a lot of folks right now are trying to get a month or two of padding. How would you go about approaching that? Let's just role play for a second. Call Rhonda. Rhonda, you're the landlord. All right, let's role play. You got to get Rhonda to give you 2 months of grace or pause or furlough of your lease. How would you go about doing this? And she's not going to say yes. She just told you she's not going to say yes.
I don't want to negotiate with her.
That's right.
She's a tough nut.
I know. So what would you do, Captain Negotiation, if you had to try and do this? How would you phrase it in a way that might help us be successful? Because a lot of folks on the call might have to have calls just like this.
All right. Hey, Rhonda, it's Jennifer with Excel and Flourish. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm going to guess that you've probably gotten other calls like I'm the one I'm going to pop to you right now. So rather than beat around the bush, I just want to give you a quick heads up. I have had a lot of business changes going on with the current situation. And while I have applied for some of the funding, it hasn't come through yet and cash flow is really drying up. I'm wondering if there's something that we can do to our lease arrangement so that we can find some way that, you know, I definitely do want to keep paying you. I just don't know that I can right now. So I'm wondering if there's some ways that we can figure out either a pause or an add-on to the end or something that I just need. Honestly, I need help for these next 2 months. And I'm coming to you early because this is one of my biggest expenses. Do you think that we can start to figure something out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that you had talked about a pause. What does that look like for you?
Well, so what I'm thinking right now is I'm lining contracts up that are looking solid as we stand right now, looking solid towards the back end of the year. And I'm wondering if we could consider taking my rent for these next 2 months and dividing that up over the last 5 months of the year. So while I wouldn't pay anything for these next 2 months, if all goes well, and maybe we need to come back in a month or two and have a conversation depending on how the circumstances evolve. But my intention would be to still pay you the full amount, just have it prorated, take those 2 months and prorate them over the last 5 months of our contract.
I mean, I definitely think that's something that we can talk about and dive into some of the numbers and see, you know, what that would look like. But I mean, I think it's definitely doable.
Okay. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, see, okay, so that's awesome. That's brilliant, right? That's brilliant. You were factual, you were direct. Rhonda said yes, not going to give you money, which I find hard to believe. But Rhonda, way to role play like the person. That's good. I appreciate that. But so you were great. You were factual and direct. And Rhonda, what did you feel like as the landlord? Did that make sense to you?
Yeah, and I think the main thing is she came to the table with a solution in mind. You know, it's not that we couldn't have had a conversation to kind of brainstorm, but she clearly had put thought and preparation into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing too that kind of ties into our previous conversation with the gentleman from the SBA is, you know, I actually own space and I own commercial property, and that mortgage, right, has been, because it's 7A, has been suspended for 6 months. So again, knowing the facts to say, hey, you know, again, I still have other expenses related to that space, but thankfully it gives me the opportunity, right, to negotiate even further, or people could negotiate even further, knowing that, you know, if their landlord does have one of those loans, that there's a little bit of forgiveness there too.
Mark Shannon makes a great point saying that it's easy for us to assume that landlords can just not take their rent, but not everybody's in that boat.
No.
So just because you ask and they have land does not mean that they're going to give it to you because you're in a hard spot. Rhonda, thank you for that. Lori Hybe, she just did this exact same thing and you shared it in the chat, but I want to make sure it gets on the recording for Facebook and for posterity. You went to your landlord. What did you ask for and how did it go?
Sure. So I actually brought 3 options to the table. One, which was just don't let me pay rent. And 2 was let's negotiate a middle ground and then evaluate once this is done, the balance that was due as far as the discount you're giving me. And then we can reevaluate once the time is over, a payment plan or something along those lines. And I don't remember what the third one was. And I did open it up for him to provide some alternative solutions as well. And he agreed to reduce my rent by 40% until we are allowed to go back to the office. And then we'll reevaluate once we're there, how to, you know, pay the balance or whatnot.
And that's a huge win because you're not like on the edge of the state where there's no land. You're in the 3rd ward in a totally awesome building and like that landlord worked with you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, and our building has a ton of artists, so I imagine there's a lot of pain and he's probably not getting payment from a lot of those businesses. So I was willing to work with him on some sort of payment. And he did say that he appreciated that I was bringing options to the table.
Right. Right.
Well, and two other parts on that. One is that we get to make a decision right now given our current circumstances, but we also reserve the right to renegotiate. Mm-hmm. And just keep that in mind. Like, just because this decision is made right now doesn't mean that, you know, a couple months down the road, one or the other parties might not come back and say, okay, you know, this is what this looks like now. We have different information to inform our decision, and we deserve the right, both sides deserve the right to say, this isn't quite what we were expecting. And therefore, you know, since circumstances have changed, I need to reevaluate this decision. Also, one of the things that I think was really good in Lori's case, she went in early on this one. Mm-hmm. And you want to talk about, like, I went in early on any of the funding options that I could find, like through my credit union or whatever. I wanted those things lined up so that I knew where I would have to make those asks. And I know we talked a lot about that on last week's rally point.
Lori, thanks for contributing. Appreciate it. So we're going to talk about positivity in just a minute, and that's a huge win for Lori. So she's priming the pump for good things that are happening to you or good things you're seeing in the marketplace. So we're going to share those stories in just a second. But before we go there, anything left about the ABCs of negotiation or wise words you want to leave us with, Jennifer?
The G stood for generous. And honestly, when possible, be generous. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't. But I think, again, if you're doing work for somebody and it's not going to work out for you right now, when you pass them off to the next person who might do it better, cheaper, just let people leave you in a way that preserves their dignity or whatever that is, and they will be more happy for that to come back to you. This generosity thing is good karma.
Yeah. That's great. Well, really valuable stuff for us right now. So thank you, Jennifer, for being the executive producer and the senior lecturer and the smart person in the room. We always appreciate you contributing. This is really valuable stuff. So we're going to turn now and talk about good things that are happening. Do you have something that you've seen that just made you think, man, what they're doing is really cool? Or this good thing happened to me and I didn't think it was going to. Is there anyone that has something that they want to share? And we will unmute your microphone, and we will do it. Michael Rempola, he's got something smart to share. Michael, what do you got, pal?
I have a thank you and a win in one. A few idea slams ago, if you guys remember Virtual Prom Live, which you all actually named, so thank you. It happened. We had our very first one on Saturday. Yes. We had about 120 kids show up, which is super exciting. And we got 3 more to go, and we're going to just keep doing it. And the fact that that thing was an idea and this group helped not only, like I said, help brand and name it, but also enhance what it could be. We put some of those things in place, and we're going to do more. We kept the bar at an appropriate level for the first one. And the fact that we got 120 in and minimal glitches was a huge win. And like I said, we're just going to keep reiterating those that were involved want to get involved again and say, let's keep going. So huge win and a thank you to the group. I wanted to share that it really happened, and we're going to do the Midwest Central Time this Saturday. So if you know anybody of high school age that is looking for something to do on Saturday night, Virtual Prom Live starts at 7 p.m. So thanks so much for everybody on that.
That's brilliant. Drop the link in the chat. Well, you have Mark Shannon. He's got something positive. Hey, Mark Shannon, what do you got?
So my son missed his birthday. His birthday was in March, and you know, obviously everybody was in lockdown and we didn't have a birthday party. There's a group called Wisconsin Truck Enthusiasts that apparently are a bunch of people who own pickup trucks. And they're offering on Facebook to drive around and basically go to different neighborhoods and kind of cheer up kids with, I don't know, flags and honking their horns and whatever. So my son is super excited that, you know, they're going to be doing this for him in the not too distant future. I thought it was pretty cool. It's one of those things where you're like, you know, some random dude in a pickup truck's going to come driving by whenever he's available, but it's cool, right? Like there's a lot of people doing that type of stuff right now. So.
Oh, that's really cool. Very cool. Thanks for sharing. Rhonda, what do you have?
All right. So I am excited because despite everything that's going on, my business is growing. And I'm in a really good position to help women prepare that are contemplating divorce. We brought on a new associate in Madison. We're working with strategic partners there. And yeah, so just really excited that there is growth happening amongst all of the chaos out there. And I think that when the quarantine's over, we will also see another unfortunate or fortunate, I guess, surge in what's next for some of these ladies. So
Yeah, it's funny. Abby and I were having a conversation about your business this weekend. We were on a walk through the neighborhood, and we're like, man, can you imagine if you didn't like your spouse? My goodness, Rhonda's going to be so busy when all of this is over. I can only imagine. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate it. Chris Sherman, oh, yay, of Awesome Beard. What do you have that's good news?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man.
We have been doing we've been contacted by a lot of school districts and foundations for different schools for the signage for all the high school graduates. So we've been finding and helping out with a lot of those at heavily discounted rates, where we're doing over 100 yard signs for Monona High School out in Cottage Grove, Nicolay High School, Tosa West, all over. So it's been kind of cool because we're able to, give some tiny little shed of light on a high school senior who has had, obviously their senior year affected by this. So it's been a good thing lately that we've been doing a lot of these signs, plus the hero signs that we've done for all the hospitals and the police departments, fire departments, and so.
That's
Well,
cool.
it's also warm enough now that you can be outside in your backyard beer garden, which is also
That is correct.
Right?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thanks for contributing. Andy Wines, are you with us? Because I want to hear about your pivot, because you've launched your pivot. Are you there?
Yeah.
AFW, are you there?
Yeah. I'm here. I'm listening. I turn my video and my phone off, everything, so I can not be distracted. So yeah, we've been pivoting we pivoted. So we started pivoting January 1. That was just the way that our business model has changed, and so because of that, we had prepped ourselves, and then actually what's going on in the world today, to a certain degree, works in our favor. In some ways, it doesn't. But our big pivot is launching and announcing today our Safe Environments Initiative. And so what we've done is we've researched over the last year different technologies to bring in sustainable solutions to ensure that we are maintaining hygiene standards in all the places we interact with. So when we're talking about the different technologies, we're talking about UV light technology. We're utilizing a water-based antimicrobial technology for surfaces and hands. And we're also working with UV light and submicron filters for the air. So for solutions to be sustainable, they have to be three things. They have to be environmentally sound, they have to be socially desirable, and they have to be economically feasible. And one of the big challenges is the economic feasibility of things. And because we've done our research, we found a way to be extremely competitive on price. And now, because of what's going on in the world, there's never been a time where it's more conscious and desirable. And then we come in with these expertise from the environmental standpoint. And so we launched our first product line today. Over the next 4 weeks, we'll be launching all product lines and should be fully operating mid-May, if not by June 1, with all of our services. And by June 1st, we'll be rolling them out to residential properties also. So we'll be teaming up with realtors to ensure that we can protect and purify properties before they get walked through and things like that. So that's where the residential properties and business still have to occur. And then we'll also be spraying residential homes for individuals that want to make sure they protect their homes. So right now we're looking for businesses that are at highest risk. So we're talking to daycares, we're talking to senior living facilities, and businesses that are still in operation, manufacturing, especially food production. So keeping the basics alive so that we could continue commerce in the limited capacity that we're in right now.
Well, I remember seeing you at every networking meeting I would go to, but soon I won't, because you're going to be way too busy to come hang out with us not getting paid. So
oh, don't worry. We had a team of guys, thankfully, a team of guys and girls that are chomping the bit right now to work. So this last month, in a weird way, I was busier than ever getting this thing launched. And now that we have it in a place where it is launched, we can pivot hard, but like everybody else, I bet the farm on this deal. This was supposed to be a initiative later in the year.
Mm-hmm.
And we bet the farm because, well, there's nothing else for us to do right now. And so
No. You mean you saw an amazing opportunity and you're taking advantage of it. That's what you meant to say, right?
Hey, no, absolutely. Well, we're going to take the fight to the virus. I can tell you, I haven't been this energized in a long time. And the reason is it gives us an opportunity, especially those of us that are vets, to serve again. It's an opportunity for us to bring our knowledge and expertise to the forefront. And it gives us an opportunity to fight the fight, right? I'm not going to fight it any other way other than, pulling up the bootstraps and getting to it. So
yep.
I wouldn't say I'm excited. I'm eager to get out there and get us back to work and establish a new normal.
Yep. Well, congratulations on the pivot. Thanks for hopping on. Last call for any positive news. If you've got something you want to share, drop it inside the chat and we will get you on the show. But we're almost up against an hour, so I want to make sure that I'm respectful of everybody's time. I've got two pieces of good news that I'm kind of pretty excited about, actually. Tomorrow night, we're having the Brand Crafted Night School. We took the in-person event at Serendipity Labs and we're moving it virtual. Tomorrow night, in a format just like this, we're going to have 5 different speakers come on and talk about how you can be a better small business owner. From the way you think about your business to what your business is, how you manage your time, your digital organization. It's just going to be a great evening of conversation. And I've got inside my Zoom chat now, we're going to have virtual networking. So it's 6 o'clock tomorrow night. We're going to get together. And the first thing we'll do is do some announcements, and then we'll start throwing people into virtual Zoom rooms in small groups. So we'll do rounds of 30-second networking just like we do in person, bring everybody back, send everybody back out. So from 6 until 7, we're actually going to do face-to-face networking, which will be great. 7 o'clock, the show will begin, and similar to all the other Brand Crafted Night Schools, it'll be me interviewing the folks, and it'll be a great night of information because the panelists are fantastic. Tickets are available. You do need a ticket for the event. You can find that on my website or inside the Brand Crafted group, but I encourage you to come to the event. And yes, cocktails are not only allowed, they're highly encouraged, JB. So yeah, thank you so much for considering joining us tomorrow night for the virtual night school sponsored by Serendipity Labs. It's going to be awesome. The other thing, it was like in 20 minutes before this show went live, my new podcast finally got announced. So I've been waiting on the eWomen Network to announce the new podcast, and Sandra Yancey, the founder and CEO, did it today during her call. So finally, my new podcast has been announced. It's called Lift As We Climb, and it's a weekly interview show between me, the premier success coaches, the eWomen VIPs, managing directors, and members from all around the world. You don't need to be an eWoman or a member of the eWomen Network to listen to the show. LiftAsWeClimbPodcast.com is the hyperlink. The first episode goes live on Monday, the 27th. So I'm very excited about the show. It's going to be fun. So I look forward to having you be a part of that as we continue to grow it. So with that, I'm scanning through the chat, and thank you for the kind words, everybody, and the links that are flying back and forth. I didn't see any more high fives that are out there or positivity that we want to do. Oh, Ariel's got something. Ariel, you've got something to share. What is that?
I do. Hi.
Hi.
Well,
You being sporty spice. What are you doing? Out for a walk?
Out for a walk.
Oh, very
Fresh
good.
air is good for the mind and the body and soul. Yes, so something exciting to share. I was doing a talk that originally was going to be in person, scheduled obviously before COVID-19. When I went to virtual, I was bummed, and we had only 2 out of 10 people show up who had originally signed up. So that was the bummer part. The bright side was the 2 people who did show up loved it so much that they asked for more time. If we'd been in person, that would have been harder for them to ask for. So I gave them more time, and after that, they wanted more time again. So they inspired me to start what I'm doing in May called Mindset Sessions. Open for anyone, virtual. And so this has allowed me to open up to sharing that kind of information and exposure to others. And that probably would not have happened if it had not been for that seemingly disappointing situation. So that was something exciting to share, how something that seemed to be disappointing actually turned out to be something really great.
That's great. Congratulations on that. And speaking of, we will see you tomorrow night. Are you ready to be awesome for night school?
I'm so excited. Ready.
It's going to be great. All right. So you'll see Ariel again tomorrow night as she's going to drop her knowledge on us during the night school. Lori Rifkin, it's a little late for lunch, but we do have your wisdom. What do you have, my friend?
I only took 1 bottle of vodka to get my 91-year-old dad on Zoom.
That's all? Just 1 bottle?
And the second time on Zoom, he said he had to tell me I shaved for this.
Wow. And you actually figured it out. How long did it take you to get him to use it?
It only took an hour because I put remote control software on his computer first.
Oh, good
so
idea.
I could show him how to do it. The only thing was he clicked on the picture of the instructions I wrote him, and the picture wasn't a live link. It was good.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All right. Well, hey, and thanks for your questions of Eric Ness. I appreciate you jumping in. That's definitely your area of expertise. So it's good to know that we were Lori approved in our line of questioning today, because I figured you would jump in if I was off base. So thank you for that. Always great to have you here. All right. So if you have anything else that you want to share, let's save it for next week when we do some positivity. We will be back next week for another episode of the Small Business Rally Point. 3:00 on Mondays is when we do the show. And just like Rhonda did, if you have an idea for what we should talk about on the show, reach out and let me know, because as we learned today, we have a ton of brilliant expertise in this group and in our networks. And continue to think positively, push, be aggressive. We are closer to this being over than you think. So if you're not working hard right now to be ready when the world reopens, you are going to regret it. The show was brought to you by the Brookfield Chamber of Commerce, Third Eye Local, Serendipity Labs, the amazing Brand Crafted Group. I love you guys. And make sure to text BIZ to 414-240-1315, and you can get on the distribution chain so I can let you know when we have people on next week at 3:00. So with that, I will talk to you tomorrow night during Brand Crafted and Night School, You and Improved. Until then, stand out and sell. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.